You are drowning in noise. You call it anxiety, but it's just the constant echo of what you should be doing, hitting the wall of what you are doing, which is usually nothing. The modern mind is paralyzed by potential. You have too many options, too much data, and too little courage to commit to the single, massive action required to cut through the illusion of chaos. You analyze, you scroll, you wait for certainty, and the result is a life lived in the waiting room. You've tried the breathing exercises, the apps, the endless therapy sessions designed to make you okay with being small. You've been told to find your center, to accept the flux, to be present. But the truth is, the fear you feel isn't because the future is uncertain. The future is always uncertain. Your fear is the consequence of low life force. It is the moment your inner coward realizes the external challenge requires a warrior, and you are currently unarmed. We live in a time obsessed with finding stillness. We seek the retreat, the cave, the safe space. We are taught that enlightenment means detachment from the struggle. This is sophisticated avoidance. It is a spiritual bypass. What if the goal wasn't to escape the chaos, but to become so powerful that the chaos simply becomes the environment in which you operate? We need to stop asking, how do I meditate my way out of this feeling? We need to ask the only question that matters. What would Nichiren Daishonin do in my place today? Nichiren did not live in a peaceful monastery with scented candles. He lived in the middle of a political, spiritual, and existential earthquake. Imagine 13th century Japan. Famine, plague, civil war that made your current political disagreements look like a polite disagreement over coffee. The ruling class was corrupt. The established Buddhist schools were offering comfort instead of salvation, and the entire nation was spiritually adrift. Then, the Mongol threat.
The largest invasion force in history was bearing down on the coast, threatening the absolute destruction of the Japanese civilization. This man was not seeking Zen. He was not seeking gentle acceptance. He was seeking the ultimate, aggressive, spiritual firepower required to survive, thrive, and transform an entire civilization under siege. Nichiren was a man who understood that if your environment is hell, you must generate the life force of a Buddha to confront it head on. He did not retreat to the mountains to avoid the suffering of the people. He stood in the marketplace facing persecution and death because he had found the key, the single profound mechanism to unlock limitless courage and wisdom in the face of absolute terror. His life was not a study in stillness. It was a master class in massive, relentless action. He was exiled multiple times. He was attacked by assassins. He was nearly executed at Tatsunokuchi. His followers were imprisoned, tortured, and killed.
And every time the world tried to crush him, he didn't lower his voice. He raised it. He didn't retreat into silence. He recited the Daimoku louder. This is the central difference between a weak faith and a warrior's faith. Most people chant or pray to feel better. Nichiren chanted to become stronger, to fuel his mission, and to generate the unstoppable force necessary to prove the truth of the Lotus Sutra. He understood that anxiety is simply life force waiting to be channeled. It is raw energy without direction. When the challenge is immense, your reaction must be equally immense. The ultimate question of the Buddhist practice is not, can I be happy? The question is, can I transform poison into medicine? Can I take the raw, terrifying energy of my fear, my anger, my doubt, and convert it into the fuel for my absolute victory? Nichiren's answer was a resounding yes.
But that answer requires you to stop treating Buddhism like a comfort blanket and start treating it like a weapon. The core of his philosophy, the reason it is so jarringly effective for modern paralysis, is the concept of the 10 worlds. This is where we diagnose your anxiety, not as a chemical imbalance, but as a temporary vibrational state. You are not stuck in the world of hell or hunger because of bad luck. You are stuck there because you are failing to access the life condition of courage. The 10 worlds in Nichiren Buddhism are not places you go when you die. They are states of being you cycle through every minute of every day. And your job, the single greatest responsibility of your life, is to consciously and aggressively pull yourself up the ladder. When you are paralyzed by anxiety, you are operating in the lower worlds: hell, hunger, animality. Hell is the state of total despair, where every action is a failure and the world feels fundamentally hostile. You are trapped. Hunger is the state of insatiable desire. You constantly seek external validation, external comfort, external solutions, a new app, a new relationship, a new job, but nothing satisfies the void. You are perpetually needy. Animality is the state of instinct and fear. You move based purely on immediate survival and the avoidance of pain. You prioritize comfort and immediate gratification over long-term victory. This is where most people live their lives, oscillating between despair, neediness, and cowardly self-preservation. Nichiren's practice is the technology designed to break that cycle violently. It is designed to launch you directly into the higher states, specifically the state of bodhisattva and Buddhahood, where your mission becomes more important than your fear. And the only way to launch yourself is through the sound of your own voice. This is why Nichiren's life, his struggle against the establishment, his confrontations with the most powerful forces of his time, is the ultimate blueprint for modern man facing overwhelming anxiety. He did not seek peace, he sought power. He did not seek to escape reality, he sought to change it. We must understand the true severity of the threat he faced to appreciate the gravity of his solution. After years of study and deep meditation, Nichiren concluded that all existing Buddhist schools had fallen into error. They were focused on obscure rituals or quietism, ignoring the core message of Shakyamuni Buddha for the latter day of the law, the time we are living in now, defined by chaos and corruption. On April 28, 1253, at age 32, he made his declaration. It was not a quiet announcement. It was a spiritual war cry. He stood up and declared that the true teaching for this chaotic era was the Lotus Sutra, and the true practice was the recitation of Nam-myoho-renge-kyo.
This was not a popular opinion. This was an act of profound spiritual and political treason against the established powers. He was directly challenging the Zen schools, the Pure Land schools, and the Shingon schools, all of which were supported by the shogunate. His decision to speak the truth even though he knew it would invite catastrophic persecution, is the first lesson in dealing with paralyzing fear. Fear is broken by commitment. Nichiren understood that the greatest anxiety we suffer from is the anxiety of not living our purpose, the anxiety of knowing we have something powerful to say or do, and choosing silence instead. By declaring Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, he cast off the life of safety and embraced the life of mission. And the moment you embrace mission, your anxiety ceases to be a paralyzing condition and becomes simply the friction of forward momentum.
His mission was simple, yet terrifyingly ambitious: to correct the spiritual errors of the nation and establish the true teaching, to protect the people from internal and external calamity. He began by writing his foundational text, the Risho on Kokron, or on securing the peace of the land through the propagation of true Buddhism. This was not a gentle philosophical treatise. It was a direct ultimatum delivered to the highest political authority, the retired regent Hojo Tokiyori. Imagine delivering a document to the most powerful man in your country, stating clearly that the reason the nation is suffering from plague, famine, and war is specifically because the shogunate is supporting false religious teachings, and if they do not change their ways, the greatest disaster of all, foreign invasion, will arrive at their shores. This is the definition of courage fueled by conviction. This is the opposite of modern paralysis. Nichiren did not wait for approval.
He did not seek permission. He used his spiritual practice to generate the absolute certainty that he was right, and then he acted with zero compromise. The Risho on Kokuron was not received well. It was immediately deemed seditious. The response was immediate and violent. The established Buddhist schools, seeing their power and prestige threatened, mobilized their followers and the government to silence him. This is the critical moment to understand. When you begin to practice true courage, the forces of resistance do not politely step aside. They attack. The moment you start chanting for massive change, your environment pushes back. Nichiren was not surprised by the persecution. He welcomed it. He saw persecution not as a setback, but as confirmation that he was on the right path. As he wrote, "The winter always turns to spring." The pressure of persecution, the constant threat of death, did not diminish his life force. It intensified it. It forced him to chant with a ferocity that a modern person, safe in their apartment, cannot even begin to imagine. He was chanting for his life. He was chanting for the future of Buddhism. He was chanting for the salvation of an entire nation. And this is the mindset required to defeat anxiety. You must stop chanting to feel good and start chanting to become strategically unstoppable. You must move your life condition from animality, where you seek safety, to bodhisattva, where you seek mission. The first major persecution came quickly. In 1260, his hut was burned down by a mob supported by the Pure Land priests. He was forced to flee Kamakura. This was merely the beginning of the storm. He understood that the path of the true seeker is never easy. The Lotus Sutra itself predicts that those who embrace its teachings in the latter day of the law will face immense hardship. Nichiren saw every attack, every exile, every near-death experience as the fulfillment of the Sutra's prophecy. proof that he was the true messenger. He took suffering and transformed it into absolute conviction. He took fear and transformed it into fuel. He took persecution and transformed it into proof. This is the transformation you must learn to execute in your own life. Your anxiety, your financial fear, your health crisis, these are not failures. They are the friction points, the confirmation that you are attempting a change so massive that the universe is testing your resolve. Nichiren's life teaches us that the power to transform chaos does not come from passive acceptance. It comes from aggressive, sustained, vocal commitment to the highest possible truth. It comes from the sound of Nam-myoho-renge-kyo. The storm did not subside, it escalated. The fear that Nichiren faced was not the vague, generalized dread of modern life.
It was specific, imminent, and politically sanctioned. When the government exiled him to the Izu Peninsula in 1261, it was a death sentence disguised as banishment. The island was desolate. The journey was treacherous. He was abandoned by the shore, left to die. But exile is not retreat for the Bodhisattva. It is a change of venue. He did not spend his time meditating on his misfortune. He spent his time affirming the power of the law. He did not seek comfort, he sought clarity. He used the isolation and the threat of death to deepen his understanding of the Lotus Sutra, and to chant with a ferocity that matched the intensity of his persecution. This is the profound difference between Nichiren's practice and the modern pursuit of calmness. Calmness is often a surrender. Courage is a mobilization. He understood that the universe responds not to your intellectual theories, but to the vibrational frequency of your commitment.
When you chant Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, you are not asking for a favor. You are asserting the fundamental reality of your Buddhahood right now, in the midst of the storm. The true crucible was yet to come. 10 years later, after the failed execution attempt at Tatsunokuchi, where he was miraculously spared, Nichiren was exiled to Sado Island. Sado was the place where hope went to die. It was the Siberian gulag of medieval Japan. Freezing temperatures, starvation, constant threats from hostile guards and rival priests who actively sought his death. If you wanted to break a man, you sent him to Sado. But Nichiren was unbreakable. Why? Because his life was no longer about his personal safety. It was about the mission. He wrote from Sado, stating, "I have accumulated the sufferings of countless existences, and now I am bearing them all at once." He was not complaining. He was celebrating the opportunity to rapidly purify his karma. He saw the intense suffering as a hyper-accelerated path to enlightenment, the ultimate spiritual workout. He used the intense cold and hunger to fuel the fire of his conviction. He wasn't chanting to make the cold go away. He was chanting to manifest a life condition so powerful that the cold, the hunger, and the fear could not penetrate the core of his being. He was transforming the environment through the strength of his inner reality. Your anxiety is a self-imposed Sado Island. You are surrounded by the cold of uncertainty, the hunger of unfulfilled potential, and the constant threat of what if. What would Nichiren do? He would use the pressure. He would recognize that the chaos you feel is the energy required for the massive transformation you are about to execute. The greater the suffering, the greater the potential for Buddhahood right now. Stop trying to escape the island. Start chanting to transform the island into the land of tranquil light.
This requires replacing the passive mind with the strategy mind. The next question is not, how do I feel better? The next question is, what massive strategic action must I take right now? And how much daimoku is required to fuel that action? Nichiren never sought safety. He sought mission. And the mission requires relentless, focused action. The daimoku is the fuel for that action. It is the spiritual technology that converts fear into ferocious courage. When you sit down before the Gohonzan, you are not entering a state of withdrawal from the world. You are entering the command center of your life. You are accessing the fundamental energy of the cosmos to execute a precise strategic plan for victory. If your chanting is weak, your strategy will be weak. If your chanting is aggressive, your strategy will be unstoppable. The power of the law is not a gentle breeze. It is a hurricane of conviction that cleanses the debris of doubt and fear from your life.
The reason you are paralyzed by anxiety is because you are viewing your life from the perspective of a victim, seeking external solutions for an internal problem. Nichiren viewed his life from the perspective of the Bodhisattva, knowing that the ultimate solution is the unwavering commitment to the mystic law, regardless of the external circumstances. His writings from Sado, the most desperate place on earth, became the foundational texts for a global movement. He did not let the environment define him. He defined the environment. This is the power you must harness, the power to look at your overwhelming debt, your crushing workload, or your crippling fear, and declare, "This is the perfect stage for the manifestation of my Buddhahood. This is the moment I prove the power of the mystic law." The true teaching of Nichiren Buddhism is the transformation of poison into medicine. The poison is the anxiety, the fear, the doubt.
The medicine is the daimoku, chanted with absolute conviction that you are fundamentally capable of overcoming any obstacle. But conviction is not a feeling. It is a decision, reinforced by sound. You must stop waiting for the feeling of conviction to arrive and start generating the sound of conviction until the feeling is forced to follow. The historical timeline of Nichiren's life is a manual on how to defeat anxiety through spiritual aggression. Every time the pressure increased, he did not retreat into quietism. He expanded his mission, deepened his writings, and chanted with greater intensity. He was not just chanting for himself. He was chanting for the future, for the day when the entire world would understand this fundamental truth. The greatest enemy is not the external threat, but the internal doubt that prevents you from taking massive action. The ultimate challenge he faced was the understanding of the nature of suffering itself.
He taught that suffering is inherent to life, but only the unenlightened are defeated by it. For the Bodhisattva, suffering is the fuel for enlightenment. It is the fertilizer required for the massive flowering of your inherent potential. Do not try to eliminate your anxiety. Use it. Recognize that the intensity of your fear is directly proportional to the magnitude of the mission you are capable of fulfilling. Your anxiety is a signal that you are designed for something massive, and your lower life conditions are fighting the inevitable ascent. Your job is to silence the lower life conditions with the sound of the law. The historical record is not a fairy tale of quiet transcendence. It is a brutal chronicle of spiritual warfare. When Nichiren Daishonin was exiled to Sado Island, he was not sent to a spa retreat for deep contemplation. He was sent to a frozen, desolate graveyard, expected to starve or freeze to death. He was surrounded by enemies, betrayed by former disciples, and relentlessly harassed by the government that sought his absolute silence.
This is the ultimate test of the human spirit. When the external world is actively trying to extinguish your existence, what do you do with the fear that grips your throat? Nichiren did not pause his mission. He amplified it. He used the isolation of Sado, the very place designed to break his spirit, as the fertile ground for his most profound philosophical insights. It was here, in the midst of crushing cold, starvation, and the constant threat of assassination, that he inscribed the object of devotion for all humankind. Think about that moment. He was facing the end of his life, yet he was creating the means for millions of people in the future to manifest their Buddhahood. His action was not reactive anxiety. It was proactive creation. He transformed the mud of his exile into the lotus of the mystic law.
This is why we say that the greatest enemy is not persecution, but the internal doubt that causes us to shrink in the face of pressure. If you are experiencing overwhelming anxiety today, understand that you are standing on your own Sado Island. The external pressures, the debt, the relationship failure, the health crisis, are the cold winds and the hostile villagers. Your duty, the duty of the Bodhisattva of the earth, is to use that pressure to deepen your resolve and to increase the volume of your sound. Nichiren understood that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to move forward, even when the executioner's sword is raised. He taught that we must embrace the difficulty of the age of the latter day of the law. This age is defined by chaos, corruption, and the overwhelming presence of fundamental darkness. But it is precisely this darkness that makes the light of Buddhahood visible. If life were easy, your enlightenment would be cheap.
The intensity of your current struggle is the proof that you are fundamentally capable of achieving a massive, transformative victory. If you were meant for mediocrity, life would have let you coast. But because you are designed for the highest potential, the universe is testing your resolve with the highest difficulty setting. This is the meaning of the principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. Your life condition right now, in this second, determines the reality you inhabit. When you are paralyzed by anxiety, you are allowing the world of hell to define your present. When you chant Daimoku with the absolute certainty of victory, you shift your entire being into the world of Buddhahood. This shift is not theoretical. It is a physical, audible, energetic transformation. Imagine Nichiren facing the attempted execution at Tatsunokuchi. The swords were raised. He was moments from death. Yet, the accounts state, he remained utterly composed.
He had achieved a state where his life was fused with the mystic law. He was no longer just Nichiren. He was the embodiment of the Bodhisattva of the earth. When you chant, you are tapping into that same state of absolute life force. You are declaring that your life is not governed by circumstances, but by the law. You must stop treating Nam-myoho-renge-kyo as a request for help and start treating it as a declaration of power. It is not a prayer begging for the anxiety to stop. It is a roar asserting that the anxiety must bow before your inherent Buddhahood. The difference between a victim and a victor is not the presence of external suffering, but the internal interpretation of that suffering. Nichiren gave us the ultimate assurance,
the ironclad guarantee that cuts through all paralyzing doubt. The winter never fails to turn into spring. Anxiety is the feeling that winter will last forever.
Faith is the absolute certainty that spring is inevitable, and that the suffering you endure now is merely the necessary preparation for a massive, unstoppable flowering of life condition. Your job is to accelerate the spring. You accelerate the spring not by waiting for the thaw, but by chanting with such massive, unwavering conviction that the forces of the universe are compelled to align with your absolute potential. This is the strategic use of sound. It is spiritual aggression against the doubt that threatens to destroy your purpose. The next time anxiety attempts to paralyze you, do not try to suppress the feeling. Acknowledge the fear, but then immediately generate the sound of the law. Do not whisper. Do not meditate passively. Chant with the force of a man who knows the entire world depends on his survival. Because it does. Your world depends entirely on the survival of your highest self.
We often romanticize spiritual practice, imagining quiet rooms, soft music, and gentle contemplation. Nichiren's reality was the absolute opposite. He was exiled, hunted, starved, and constantly facing assassination attempts by the ruling powers and rival priests. His practice was not about finding an escape hatch from the brutal reality of the 13th century. It was about generating the absolute, undeniable power to stand immovable in the middle of the fire. He did not seek peace from the chaos. He manifested courage within the chaos. This is why we must fully grasp the function of the object of devotion, the Gohonzon. It is often misunderstood as an external idol or a relic to be worshipped. This is a profound error. The Gohonzon is not something outside of you. It is the blueprint of the universe. And more critically, it is the mirror reflecting the true enlightened potential of your own life, the life of the bodhisattvas of the earth.
When you sit before the Gohonzon, you are not praying to an external deity for favor. You are confronting the single greatest truth of your existence, which is the inherent, uncreated power of your own Buddhahood. Anxiety is the feeling of separation. It is the feeling that you are small, fragile, and utterly alone against forces that are too large to control. The moment you sit down and begin to chant, you are declaring the end of that separation. You are taking the scattered, fragmented energy of your fear, and you are focusing it, channeling it through the sound of Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, and directing it back toward the unified, indestructible state of life represented by the Gohonzon. The goal is to fuse your small, anxious self with the massive cosmic life of the law. Nichiren's teaching is a radical, almost violent shift in identity. You are not a helpless soul adrift in a chaotic world. You are a bodhisattva of the earth. This is not a metaphor.
This means you possess the mission and the inherent power to transform the most poisoned environment, be it a medieval society consumed by war and plague, or your own internal landscape consumed by doubt and dread, into a pure land. Anxiety is the direct result of forgetting this identity. Daimoku is the relentless physical process of remembering it. The moment you chant, you activate the latent ability to see the fundamental darkness of life, the source of all suffering, the source of your anxiety, not as a permanent obstacle, but as the fuel for your enlightenment. This
is the principle of turning poison into medicine. The anxiety itself becomes the raw material for your transformation. If you had no anxiety, you would have no need for the massive, explosive power of Buddhahood. The deeper the darkness, the brighter the light you are capable of generating.
Nichiren experienced the deepest darkness, exile, betrayal, near execution, and therefore he revealed the highest potential of human life. Your job is to stop resisting the darkness and start utilizing it. The strategic use of Daimoku means you are not trying to feel better. You are trying to become stronger than the feeling. You are generating a life force so potent that the circumstances that once terrified you become irrelevant. This is the ultimate test of faith. The true test is not when life is easy, but when the pressure is maximized. Nichiren faced literal swords at Tatsunokuchi. You face the paralyzing dread in the quiet hours of the night. The strategy is identical. Never retreat. Never let the internal enemy dictate your action. You chant to mobilize the forces of the universe, forces that are literally your own life energy, to break through the illusion of powerlessness.
You are training yourself to be the general of your own life, capable of issuing commands that your environment must obey. Do not think of your chant as meditation. Think of it as issuing a command for spring to arrive immediately. If you are facing a massive financial crisis, your Daimoku must be the sound of a man who is already signing the successful contract. If you are facing paralyzing health anxiety, your Daimoku must be the sound of perfect, vibrant health asserting itself over the disease. It must be a sound of absolute, predetermined victory. The moment the anxiety attempts to flood your system, you are faced with a choice. Will you be the victim who drowns in the sensation? Or will you be the bodhisattva of the earth who uses that very intensity to fuel a chant that compels the universe to align with your highest purpose? The power is in the sound. The power is in the conviction. The power is in the unwavering refusal to be small. This is not passive philosophy. This is spiritual aggression. This is the absolute, massive action that Nichiren taught. Take the fear, transform it into the sound, and let the roar of your Buddhahood silence the whispers of doubt. You look for comfort. You seek a quiet room, a moment of reprieve, a pill or a distraction to dull the edge of the dread. Nichiren sought friction. He understood that the path to true Buddhahood, the path to manifesting the unshakable life state, is not paved with ease. It is forged in absolute opposition. The moment he began to declare the true teaching, the universe, or perhaps the collective ignorance of the age, mobilized to crush him. This is not a romantic fable. This is the reality of a life lived at full volume. They came for him at Matsubakayatsu. They tried to execute him at Tatsunokuchi. They exiled him to the barren cold of Izu and the brutal snows of Sado. Think about this confrontation.
The state, the established religious powers, the entire political and spiritual infrastructure of the nation was aimed at silencing one man. They offered him comfort, status, and safety if he would simply compromise his truth. He answered them with more chanting. He answered them with more writing. He answered them with the roar of a lion asserting its sovereignty in the wilderness. When we speak of anxiety,
We often speak of perceived threats. Nichiren faced actual, physical threats designed to end his existence. And in the crucible of Sado Island, freezing, starving, surrounded by enemies and treacherous terrain, he did not sink into paralysis. He did not ask for pity. He used the absolute isolation and the maximum pressure to write his most profound declarations. He was not waiting for the spring. He was declaring its inevitable arrival. He wrote, "The winter never fails to turn into spring." This statement is not a motivational poster.
It is an immutable law of life that he was asserting through his practice, even when every sensory input screamed that he was doomed to freeze. His inner reality, his Buddhahood, was commanding the external reality to align. Your anxiety is your Sado Island. It is the cold, isolating, and terrifying environment where you feel abandoned by hope and resources. The world tells you to retreat, to wait for the thaw. Nichiren's teaching demands the opposite. It demands that you utilize the pressure of the winter to generate the heat of the spring immediately. You cannot wait for the circumstances to improve before you decide to be magnificent. You must become magnificent in the face of the circumstances, compelling them to shift. The depth of your life force, the sheer power of your Nam-myoho-renge-kyo must be so overwhelming that it functions as a spiritual heater, melting the ice of despair and doubt that surrounds you.
This is the meaning of faith that Nichiren forged in the fires of persecution. Faith is not belief in something outside yourself. Faith is the absolute conviction in the power residing within your own life to transform the poison into medicine. When you chant in the face of absolute financial ruin, you are not begging for money. You are asserting the limitless richness of your life state. When you chant in the face of paralyzing grief, you are not pleading for the pain to stop. You are declaring the eternal, interwoven dignity of life and death, and asserting the power of your current existence to create value from the loss. You must stop treating your life force as a fragile thing that needs protection. It is a sword that needs sharpening. The anxiety, the doubt, the fear, these are the whetstones. They are the friction necessary to reveal the diamond of your true self. If you run from the pressure, you remain dull.
If you meet the pressure with the sound of the daimoku, you become razor sharp, capable of cutting through any illusion of limitation. Nichiren refused to be a victim of his environment. He became the master of his environment by mastering his own mind. He weaponized his suffering. You must do the same. Stop viewing the symptoms of your anxiety as a sign of weakness. View them as the energy source for your next massive breakthrough. The very intensity of the dread is the fuel required for the intensity of the spiritual command. Do not dissipate that energy. Capture it. Transform it. Turn the whisper of panic into the roar of victory. This is the inheritance Nichiren left you. Not a doctrine of passive acceptance, but a technology of active, aggressive transformation. Your life is waiting for your command. Will you issue it, or will you remain paralyzed, waiting for a spring that you must first create? You need to understand the scale of the laboratory Nichiren built.
It was not a cushion in a quiet temple. It was the freezing, barren island of Sado. Imagine the scene. He was exiled, stripped of all support, surrounded by enemies who had already tried to execute him. His students were scattered or imprisoned. Every logical indicator pointed to failure, to a slow, miserable death in the snow. If ever there was a time for philosophical retreat, for quiet resignation, that was it.
But Nichiren did the opposite. In the midst of that absolute existential threat, he did not meditate to find calm. He chanted to solidify his identity. He did not seek escape from the fear. He used the fear as the catalyst to write his most profound declarations, the works that solidify the very purpose of his life and the ultimate dignity of humanity. He was not simply reciting a prayer for survival. He was issuing a declaration of war against the fundamental darkness of the universe. When he chanted Nam-myoho-renge-kyo on Sado, he was not trying to feel better.
He was transforming the environment itself, starting with the environment of his own heart. He was turning the threat of death into the ultimate stage for proving the law.
Nichiren viewed the persecution as the ultimate litmus test. He wrote, "The greater the hardships befalling him, the greater the joy he felt, because the law he propagated was true. Joy in the midst of suffering, not forced happiness, but the deep, unshakable joy of knowing that your struggle validates the infinite power within you. This is the life state you are aiming for. Not a life without problems, but a life where the problems become the fuel for your victory. Your current crisis is not an interruption of your life. It is the necessary stage for your proof. Stop running from the pressure. Recognize the immense power that the pressure is generating. You have been given the friction. Now apply the fire. Apply the sound. The sound of the daimoku is the physical manifestation of your will to survive and conquer. It is the sound of the diamond being forged.
It is the sound that echoes the courage of a man who, facing certain death on a frozen island, chose not to beg, but to roar. And that roar, that command, is waiting for you to unleash it right now. The sound of Nam-myoho-renge-kyo is not a passive chant. It is the verbalization of the Bodhisattva vow. It is the declaration that you will never be defeated by the darkness, whether that darkness is external tyranny or internal paralysis. Nichiren understood that inaction breeds doubt, and doubt is the true enemy. When he was exiled to Sado Island, the coldest, most desolate place in Japan, he did not retreat into quiet contemplation to escape the cold. He doubled down on his mission. He used the extreme isolation and suffering as the ultimate proving ground for the power of the Lotus Sutra. He was surrounded by enemies, malnutrition, and the constant threat of execution. Yet, from that frozen wasteland, he produced the most profound philosophical treatises of his entire life.
Think about that contrast. While shivering in a makeshift hut, facing daily death, he was writing about the eternal nature of life and the inherent Buddhahood of all people. He turned the ultimate setback into the ultimate spiritual ascent. This is the model for confronting anxiety. Anxiety paralyzes you. It makes you feel small and isolated. It tells you to hide. Nichiren's response teaches us that the moment you feel most isolated, that is the moment to unleash the greatest action, the greatest declaration, the greatest creative output. Your anxiety is trying to make Sado Island out of your living room. The practice of daimoku is the immediate, aggressive counteraction. It is the spiritual technology that says, I will not let this environment dictate my internal state. I will use the energy of this suffering to fuel my inherent greatness. You must stop viewing your current struggle as a barrier to enlightenment.
View it as the very material from which enlightenment is built.
The path to Buddhahood is not a retreat from the 9 worlds of suffering. It is the determined, vocal march through them. Nichiren's life teaches us that the only way to prove the power of the law is to confront the harshest reality head on, without compromise and without seeking refuge. The refuge is found only within the sound of your own voice, declaring your inherent dignity. That is why we chant, not to escape the world, but to conquer it, not to feel better, but to become stronger. When you sit down to chant, you are not engaging in passive prayer. You are reenacting the vow of the original Buddha, planting your feet firmly in the chaos of the present moment and commanding the universe to align with your highest potential. This is the aggressive, compassionate, and unwavering spirit of Nichiren, and this is the spirit that must drive your every action today. The question you must answer every morning is this: are you going to be defined by the environment you find yourself in, or are you going to define the environment? Anxiety is the noise of the environment winning. The practice of chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo is the sound of you winning. It is the sound of the universe bending to your vow. It is not a passive tool. It is not a relaxation technique. It is the most aggressive, proactive technology for life transformation ever devised. When you recite the Daimoku, you are doing 2 things simultaneously. First, you are aligning your life with the fundamental rhythm of the cosmos, the mystic law. You are pulling the immense, limitless power of the universe into the finite, immediate reality of your own body. Second, and more importantly for the anxious mind, you are taking immediate, relentless action against the paralysis. Anxiety thrives in the silence of indecision. It whispers doubts in the dark corners of your mind, convincing you that the risk of movement is greater than the suffering of stagnation. Daimoku is the sound that burns those corners away. It is an immediate, physical declaration that you are not afraid of your own voice, and therefore you are not afraid of your own potential. You are forcing the 9 worlds of suffering, anger, hunger, hell, anxiety, to confront the inherent, indestructible state of Buddhahood residing within you. You are not asking for peace. You are commanding courage. You are not seeking refuge from the storm. You are becoming the eye of the hurricane, stable, centered, and generating the force necessary to reshape everything around you. Nichiren taught that the only way to prove the truth of the law is through tangible, visible proof in your own life. This proof is called proof of actual fact. Your anxiety, your paralysis, your current financial struggle, your failed relationships. This is the material.
This is the stage upon which the proof must be demonstrated. If you retreat, if you meditate to escape, you prove nothing. You merely confirm the power of the external environment over your internal state. But when you sit down, exhausted, afraid, overwhelmed, and you unleash the sound of Nam-myoho-renge-kyo with the conviction of a hungry lion, you begin to turn the poison of your suffering into the medicine of enlightenment. You are not chanting to feel better. You are chanting to become the kind of person who can solve the problem that is currently overwhelming you.
transformation is not external. It is the internal forging of character. Nichiren, exiled and facing execution, did not wait for the government to change. He changed the fundamental spiritual reality of the land through the sheer force of his voice and his unwavering vow. What would Nichiren do today, facing your specific modern anxiety? He would stop analyzing the symptoms. He would stop seeking comfort.
He would sit down, right now, wherever he was, and he would chant, not with a soft, passive voice, but with the roar of a champion, demanding that the universe align itself with justice and truth. He would use the energy of the fear, the adrenaline, the racing heart, the sleepless nights, and funnel it directly into the sound. He would turn poison into medicine, instantly. Your task is the same. Stop treating the practice as a ritual. Treat it as the immediate, aggressive countermeasure to the chaos in your mind. The ultimate teaching of Nichiren Buddhism is that the path to enlightenment is found not in running away from the world, but in the determined confrontation with the harshest realities of the present moment. Your anxiety is your Sado Island. It is the ultimate test. You have the technology. You have the law. You have the vow. Now, you must demonstrate the proof. Do not wait for motivation. Do not wait for the perfect environment. Do not wait until you feel calm. Sit down, open your mouth, and let the sound of your inherent dignity override the noise of your fear. This is the only necessary action. This is the final order. Go and prove the power of the law.